News Talk 94.5 WPTI, 96.7 FM WTOB. You're listening to the Wealth Guardians Show with Doug Ray, helping you retire the job and keep that paycheck. This morning in the studio, you have Brice Payne and Garrett Ray. And today, we are talking about the Magic 8 Ball's Guide to Retirement Planning. You remember that little toy that you might have played with as a kid? Well, we're going to ask the 8 Ball what it thinks about different retirement questions and strategies. And yes, we'll listen to the 8 Ball, but we're also going to give Garrett and Brice's take on it as well. Good morning, Brice. How are you?
Good morning, Garrett. I am doing just fine. How are you?
I am doing all right. I'm interested to see what this 8 Ball is going to come up with as far as questions and answers when it comes to retirement strategies or things that people often ponder and consider when they're approaching retirement. I'm sure we'll get into that, but
it never steered me wrong. Even when I was in the 4th grade, I would ask it, should I ask Becky Sue to be my girlfriend? And it would say, answer is hazy or whatever. So it never steered me wrong.
Well, Becky Sue missed out. She missed out.
Yeah. So good morning to you. Good morning to everybody out there. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your weekend with us. Garrett and I, as he said, are going to talk about the Magic 8 Ball, that little toy that we had in the questions. But before we get started on that, let's go ahead and do our Wealth Guardian Service salute as we want to do every weekend when we start the show here. We just take a minute and want to give a special acknowledgement and thanks from the bottoms of our heart here at the Wealth Guardians to all of the service members out there, the first responders who put on the uniform and do what they need to do, even though it's tough on the family at times and it's tough on yourselves. We do recognize the sacrifices you are making, and we want to just take a moment and thank you for that. We appreciate you here at the Wealth Guardians and your families. All right, Garrett, now before we get into this Magic 8 Ball, as we want to do every weekend morning, we ask ourselves a question so that you out there have a little opportunity to better get to know your Wealth Guardians advisor. And the question that we're going to ask each other this morning is, Garrett, tell me what you remember about the first time you attended a professional sporting event.
I remember this very well. For those of you longtime listeners, you may know that Doug lived in the Charlotte metro area for a very long time. He still kept a radio presence up here in the Triad. But as a kid, I grew up in Charlotte, and the Charlotte Hornets in the late 80s, early 90s were all the rage. It was the first professional sports team that the state got. This is before the Carolina Panthers days.
And the Hurricanes.
And the Hurricanes, absolutely. And so I definitely remember being a little guy going and watching the early Hornets with Muggsy Bogues and Alonzo Mourney.
Over at the Hive.
In southern part of Charlotte there. It was a good time to be a little kid and, have your heroes play before.
Yeah, those were some good players back then.
Yeah, I remember getting very excited when the Hornets, I think they only did it one time, but we did beat the Chicago Bulls when Michael Jordan was playing. And he had just of course, taken the league by storm, and it was basically dusting off.
Oh, so you got to see Michael play.
Yeah,
very nice.
See Michael play one time.
Very good. All right. Well, if you're asking me the same question, I grew up in Denver, and when I was about 3.5, maybe 4 years old, Mom took me to my first game, and it was the Denver Broncos. This was before the old Mile High Stadium was even completely finished. It was only one level on the eastern side, so it wasn't the Mile High Stadium that you might have seen a couple of decades ago. It was even before that. But I remember that there was a couple of men next to us who were cheering for the Broncos, and they kept having beers. And as the Broncos are wont to do, they kept getting beaten. And eventually they were booing the Broncos. And I looked over at Mom. I said, Mom, I'm confused. These guys were cheering the Broncos and now they're booing them. Why? Because, well, they've had a lot to drink, Brice. So that was not only my first experience with going to a football game, it was my first experience of watching people get drunk, I suppose. Two birds with one stone.
Seared in the memory.
There we go. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started on this, Garrett. You go ahead and ask the question and shake up the ball and see what we have for the first one here.
All right. So I have the ball here. I'm shaking. And the first question is $1 million enough to retire? And let's see what this 8 Ball says. And it says, reply is hazy. Please try again.
Okay.
So indecisive for the 8 Ball if $1 million is enough.
And you know what? I like that answer because, as we like to say here for a lot of questions that people will ask us as retirement planners, it depends. The answer depends. But this is a good question to ask because it is probably the most misunderstood, quote unquote, fact that people will hear about retirement planning is you can't retire until you have $1 million. And that is nonsense. That is complete fiction. It depends on how much you're spending.
How much you're spending, how much income you have in retirement.
Exactly. Yeah. So is $1 million enough to retire on? Let's say that you spend $6,000 a month, but your Social Security and your wife's Social Security accumulate, it totals about maybe $8,000, which is very reasonable. Yep. That means even after taxes, you probably have enough or close to enough money to not need any investments. Now, I'm not going to encourage anybody out there to rely on that, of course, but no financial planner can tell you have to have this much money in order to retire, because retirement is different for everybody.
Exactly.
As Garrett said, your investments are going to be a source of income, hopefully for you, but it might not need to be a large one. Other people out there have VA benefits, or they have a pension, be it private or public. They have, maybe they have passive income in retirement. Maybe they're a landlord. We have so many clients who have some kind of form of income from being a landlord. So all of that money could equal enough for you to spend and live the kind of life that you want to, that the size of your investment pool is really irrelevant. Now, it's a great position to be in, and I wish more of us out there were in that position, but that's why you can't simply say, oh, you have $1 million, you can retire. Oh, you don't have $1 million, you can't retire. Can't answer a question like that.
Yeah, it takes much more sophisticated analysis of that family's position in retirement, for sure.
You got it, exactly.
All right. Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Wealth Guardians radio show, and we are talking about the Magic 8 Balls Guide to Retirement Planning. Now, admittedly, Brice and I are not going to take, what the 8 ball says and just roll with it. We're going to give our take on it too. All right, Brice, we got another question here.
All right, let's have at it.
I'm shaking the 8 ball, and the question is, can I rely on Social Security for my retirement? And what does the 8 ball say? It says, outlook not so good. Wow. That's an interesting response.
It is, yeah, a little bit. So another common question that we get. So let me set the background for you. Social Security is going to be one of the main forms of income for almost everybody. And so if you're listening out there, probably yourself as well, Social Security is going to be one of those main forms of income for you. There are different ways to file for Social Security. And you can file earlier on and get a smaller amount, or you can file as late as 70 and get a larger amount. And which filing strategy makes the most sense for you and your wife? Well, that's one of the things that we help our clients figure out as holistic financial planners, is which of those filing strategies is going to make the most sense for you in your specific situation. And the answer is different for everybody. But a lot of people will say, even though the numbers say it makes the most sense for me to hold off on filing for Social Security until 70, which has nothing to do with when you retire. Keep that in mind. They're two different things. But somebody doesn't want to wait until 70 to file for their Social Security, even though we can see on the numbers and mapping it out that it makes the most financial sense for them. Why don't they want to wait until 70? A very common reason that they come back with is, I don't think Social Security is going to be there if I wait until 70. Something's going to happen to it, which that concern is based on an element of truth, that if we don't make any changes to Social Security, the trust funds that fund Social Security are going to be dried up by the year 2034, right, which means the only income that Social Security will have is the contributions that people have made into it from their paychecks over the course of that year.
Yep.
That's only going to be enough income to fund about 75% of what Social Security will be marked to pay out to everybody who's receiving it. So something's going to have to change between now and then. We get that. And when will it change? Well, knowing Congress, it probably won't change until the year 2033, right?
Year before.
Yeah, so they're not going to tackle this problem years in advance. They're going to tackle it right at the very end. But can you rely on Social Security? Let's say that if you are 55 or older now, there is a very good likelihood that Social Security is not going to fundamentally change between now and when you would file for it.
Yeah.
If Congress is going to change anything about Social Security, it would probably be earlier on for people who are maybe 40 years old or younger, because their radar isn't concerned with Social Security at that point. And if Congress wants to kind of keep whatever they're doing under everybody's radar, they're not going to make a change for somebody who's going to file for it in a couple of years. They're going to make a change for the younger generation. So can you rely on Social Security for retirement? In all likelihood, yes. It's going to be there just as it is defined as you've come to understand it if you are 55 or older. If you're younger, it does get a little bit hazier, and maybe that's why the outlook is not so good according to the Magic 8 Ball. But Garrett, speaking of Social Security, we are doing our Social Security seminar.
We are.
And it's, we do this a couple of times a year. And why? Because as holistic financial planners, as I said, Social Security is very important to understand how to file, the different ways you have to file, and making sure that you're making the right decision when it comes to filing. Because after a year, you can't undo that. You can't change how you file. So you want to make sure you're getting it right. So there's a lot of people out there who Social Security is just coming onto the radar, and they don't know what they're supposed to do about that. So we have the answers for you, or better yet, Hamilton Morales has the answers for you. Hamilton Morales is one of the premier coaches and teachers for the National Social Security Association of Advisors, which, of course, we here at the Wealth Guardians are members. Hamilton Morales, here's the dates. Thursday, November 7th, and then again Tuesday, November 12th at 6:30 p.m. at our office in Clemens. There is no cost or obligation to attend, but if you've got questions about Social Security or you want to make sure you understand everything you need to about it, you would really want to attend this. So as I said, no cost or obligation to attend, but you do have to sit down and give us a call, 336-391-3409, so that we can put you on our list of attendees. Garrett, anything to add to that?
No, I think it's always great having Hamilton Morales on. It's great because he is an expert in the field. And so you're getting the information directly from the horse's mouth from one of the premier people who knows everything about it. Like Doug says, he's a walking, talking encyclopedia on everything Social Security.
That's it. All right, very good. Well, Garrett, it's that time. Look at the clock. We've got to go to a break here. And what do we do? What do we do before we go to a break?
I'm sure you got a trivia question.
We got a trivia question for Garrett. We got a trivia question for everyone else out there. Garrett, as an engineer, you are well aware of inventions, right? And then the engineering that went behind some of those inventions. Who said, "Mr. Watson, come here, I need you"? Mr. Watson, come here, I need you. Now, stick around for the answer to that trivia question and see if we stump Garrett on the other side of this break. This is Brice Payne. With me is Garrett Ray. The show's The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And this is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. And this is 96.7 FM WTOB. News Talk 94.5 WPTI, 96.7 FM WTOB. Welcome back to the Wealth Guardian Show, where we continue to help you retire the job and keep the paycheck. I'm Brice Payne in the Wealth Guardian studio, along with Garrett Ray this morning. And in this second segment, we're going to continue discussing the Magic 8 Ball's Guide to Retirement Planning. Now, before we answer the trivia question that we asked Garrett on the other side of this break that we just took and left you hanging with, I want to ask you this. Are you planning to retire? All right. Well, if you haven't already retired, I would certainly hope the answer was yes at some point. Have you met with a retirement income certified professional who's also a fiduciary? I would hope the answer to that will at some point be yes, because that would be the prudent thing to do. If you have not, I want to invite you to take us up on a complimentary review of your current financial details. As certified retirement planning specialists, we are going to put together a customized written plan with strategies for portfolio allocation, income distribution, Social Security filing, and tax efficiency, with the additional benefit of often reducing both the risk and fees of your current plan. So if you put aside at least $400,000 and you want to take us up on this no-cost, no-obligation review, here's the number to call, 336-391-3409. Did I mention there's no cost or obligation? 336-391-3409. If you're not a phone person, then go to wealthguardians.com and you can register with us that way. That's the wealthguardians.com to learn more. Let us show you in black and white how to retire the job and keep the paycheck. All right, let's go ahead and get back to the second segment. And here is the trivia question. Garrett, are you ready?
I believe so.
All right. Who said the famous line, "Mr. Watson, come here, I need you"?
Oh, I want to say this might have been Alexander Graham Bell with the telephone. Okay.
Very good. And I learned something here. That was the first thing that was uttered in a telephone. Mr. Watson, come here. I need you. What I did not know, and maybe you did, is what prompted him to say that particular thing on the telephone.
I've heard this story before, but I'm completely blanking on the why.
He apparently spilled something on himself, and he needed Mr. Watson's help to clean it up. What he spilled on himself, which I have spilled on myself, and it is not fun, battery acid.
Wow. Okay.
So, Mr. Watson, come in here, bring a couple of paper towels with you, please. We've got an accident. We've got an acid spill. So good job, Garrett. You actually knew that quote from an inventor. All right. And what country was Mr. Watson and Alexander Graham Bell from?
That sounds very British to me.
Actually, Canada.
Canada, okay.
But how many people knew that? Everyone thinks that he's from the United States. We are so apt to want to take credit for everything else, right? Yeah, he's actually Canadian. So good job, Canada. Good job on that one. All right. Now, Garrett's handing me over this 8-ball, so I've now got it in my hands. I asked it a few questions earlier on, or we asked it a few questions, and I answered them. So now it's Garrett's turn. So we're shaking up the 8-ball here, and I'm going to ask it because I came from the school where you have to shake it as you're asking the question, not after you ask the question. Should I start saving for retirement now? And the magic 8-ball, wait for it to settle here. Come on. Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely is the answer, Garrett. What do you say to that?
I have to say I would certainly agree with the 8-ball in this case. Whether you're 21 or you're 51, absolutely you should start saving for retirement now. If longtime listeners to this show will, I've got a little phrase, make your investment automated, just like paying your Netflix subscription. Make it so that it's automated and you don't even have to think about it. What's the easiest thing that most people have access to? How about your company 401k? Let's start there. If your company offers a match, please make sure you're investing at least up to the match. So they may say that the company may match you dollar for dollar up to 4%. Make sure you're at least contributing 4% of that salary into that 401k. You're getting dollar for dollar. So effectively, you have 8% of your salary per year going into that 401k. It basically gets taken out of your paycheck before you even receive it. You get a tax deduction for it at the end of the year. It's a great tool that you can just basically plug and play, and it builds over time. The earlier you can start, the better. But hey, if you're even 51 and you're just now getting started, go for it. That's something that you absolutely need to be doing. If you have a situation where, okay, you're already doing the correct things in your 401ks, now you're considering about, an individual brokerage account or perhaps an IRA that you may have started, do the same thing. Whatever a comfortable value is, whether that's $100 a month, that just automatically goes from your bank each and every month to that brokerage account, to that IRA. Make sure that you get that started on a regular contribution into your investment accounts. Perfect advice from the 8-ball.
All right. That's great advice, Garrett. I'm going to give everyone else out there a little bit of a project to do. Pick up a calculator. How old are you? Let's say that you're 40 years old. Okay, let's just use the average retirement age of 65. That's 25 years out. 25? I want you to take $1,000, type it into the calculator, and hit plus 7%. Do that one time, and then keep doing that 25 times. Plus 7% once, plus 7% twice, plus 7% 3 times. See what number that comes out to. What are we doing there, Garrett? We are looking at compounding interest. And there is a great graph out there, if you can find it, that shows how much money somebody who started saving for retirement at age 40, as opposed to somebody who started saving for retirement at 25, how much more money the person starting at 40 would have to add to his retirement funds every month compared to the person who started at 25 to catch for them both to have the same amount of money when they retired at 65. It's unreal. And what did Einstein call compounding interest? The 8th great wonder of the world. And so do that, and that right there is going to give you the answer. Yeah, I probably need to start saving for retirement now because I don't want to have to contribute $5,000 a month to my retirement plan. I'd rather do $1,000 a month and start earlier. And there you go, right?
Yeah, if only we could talk to our 22-year-old self.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I've thought, if my parents could have ever given me one bit of advice, take a career where they offer you a pension.
Yeah.
That's a great bit of advice. All right. Hey, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Wealth Guardian Show, and we are talking about the Magic 8-Ball's Guide to Retirement Planning here. Got another great question. We're going to ask it for Garrett here. And this question is, should I focus on paying off debt before increasing my retirement contributions? Let's go ahead and shake this 8-ball up. Wait for it to clear here. Should I focus on paying off debt before increasing my retirement contributions? And here it goes. It says, most likely you should focus on paying off debt before increasing retirement contributions. What say you, Garrett?
Yeah, I'd have to say I largely agree with the 8-ball here as well. Now, that being said, there are some forms of debt that we absolutely want to just hammer away.
Bad debt,
like the credit cards. Yeah, some people I know use a credit card and then they pay it off at the end of every month. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But if you've got a credit card balance that's outstanding, that guy is probably racking up 18 to 20 to 21% interest, and it's killing you.
It's completely different than other types of debt.
It is. Auto loans, I'm kind of torn, but if we got an auto loan, obviously we need at least one car for the household to get around. But yes, focus on paying off your car note for sure. If you can pay extra on it, absolutely. When it comes to the home, this I differ a little bit. So if we've got a mortgage and, that's locked in for 15, 30 years and we know what that is, and we're not, super, super cash strapped, or perhaps we got that mortgage 2 or 3 years ago and we were enjoying record low interest rates, and you've got a mortgage today at 2.3% or 2.4, 2.5, that's almost like gold today.
Oh, yeah.
If you were to buy a house today, you're probably locking in somewhere, 6-7%. Yeah.
So the answer is different on that one, perhaps.
Answer is different on that one. You don't have to pay extra or necessarily aggressively hammer away at the mortgage, especially if you've got one of those more attractive interest rates. So I would say, in summary, yes, we want to focus off paying debt before increasing my retirement contributions on all debt except for mortgage.
Yeah, and I think Dave Ramsey has said many times that very same thing. The only debt that he thinks is acceptable is a mortgage. Yeah. Anything else? Buy a car that you can afford when you can afford it. Don't buy a car and put it on layaway, so to speak, or on debt. But the mortgage is the one thing he's okay with, and there's the added bonus there because maybe you mentioned this, that the interest payments are tax-free.
I'd say, as far as the Wealth Guardians, we agree with a lot of what Dave says. Maybe not everything, but when he's absolutely right when it comes to his philosophy around paying off debt and what you need to focus on first.
All right, very good. Well, thank you for that one. Garrett, I wonder what Dave Ramsey's thought is on Social Security.
Yeah, I'm not a very regular listener to Dave, but I think that, what he has said is pretty much in line with what you had mentioned. If you are age 50, 55 and older, it doesn't make any logical sense that Congress is going to pull the carpet from underneath your feet, so to speak. Now, for the younger generations, I think that, and I'm one of them, I think we're definitely going to experience some sort of change for Social Security. Again, as you mentioned, it's not really on our radar just yet. But for those of you who are in that retirement window, you're 10 years out or less, there's not going to be any significant changes. I haven't heard Dave say his particular take on it, at least personally.
Why do I bring Social Security up?
Well, I guess because that's a huge income source for most people in retirement.
Because it's our upcoming seminar. We also have an upcoming seminar on Social Security. So we do this seminar a couple of times a year. We do a number of different seminars, as you probably have become familiar with over the years. And this one is Social Security and retirement. Garrett, you know this. There are hundreds of different ways to file for Social Security. There's only one way that's going to make the most sense for you out of those hundreds of ways. And we want to make sure that everybody out there has the opportunity to understand the pros and cons of filing for Social Security in different ways and what that can mean to your tax brackets and income and what makes the most sense for you financially, not just now, but in the long run, right? So the seminar that we're doing is Thursday, November 7th, and again, Thursday, November 12th at 6:30 p.m. at our office in Clemens. Hamilton Morales is coming up. He's a National Social Security Association coach. And we here at the Wealth Guardians are National Social Security Association advisors. So we really encourage you to give us a call and register for this. No cost or obligation, but you do have to register. 336-391-3409. 336-391-3409. Garrett, I think we're just about out of time.
We are. That is how it goes when we're having fun, Brice.
All right, well, go ahead and sign us out, buddy.
Well, that is all the time we have for this week. Thank you for joining us. We hope the rest of your weekend is everything you want it to be. This is Brice Payne and Garrett Ray in the studio. The show is The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And remember, guys, sound financial plans do not create themselves. And this is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. And this is 96.7 FM WTOB.